Oh hi. Kotor, the city in Montenegro. Administrative center of community Kotor. It is located on the bank of the Kotorski Gulf of the Adriatic Sea. Historically, Kotor and the lands surrounding him belong to the region Dalmatia. The old town is under protection of UNESCO. Kotor is administrative, cultural, religious, education and the Boki Kotorsko economic center. Throughout all history, Kotor and the Kotorski Gulf navigation and overseas trade were major activity of locals. Therefore, Kotor became one of the most important shopping centers of this part of the Adriatic coast. In the city there is a Maritime Museum of Montenegro, Institute of Biology of the Sea Faculty of the University of Montenegro, which has grown from the seaworthy school having 3-century history, Association of Ship Owners of Montenegro, and Brotherhood of Seamen, Bakalske Mornarica. Because of unique mixture of various cultures, the old city center Kotor in 1979 has been entered in the list of the World Cultural Heritage under patronage of UNESCO. Geography. Kotor is located in the southeast part of the Kotorski Gulf, at the foot of ridge Lovchen. This city was located generally along the coastline and in the valley at slopes of the hill reaching in height of 260 meters. The area of Kotorski municipality is 355 square km. The Kotorski Gulf. One of the parts of the Adriatic Sea which are most deeply crashing deep into the continent. It consists of several small gulfs connected among themselves by rather narrow mouths, together components one of the best natural harbors of Europe. Long time existed belief that the gulf represents the fjord thanks to what was assigned to it and is still used, first of all in the tourist sphere, naming the most southern fjord in Europe. However, according to modern scientific researches, it is considered that Boka Kotorska represents the remains of once river canyon existing here. In July, 2000 has been included by Boka Kotorska in the list of 25 most beautiful bays of the world. Other gulfs from this list are in the Scandinavian countries. The climate in the neighborhood of Kotor differs in the warm dry summer and in the soft damp winter. Average annual temperature -15.2 C. The warmest month, July, 25 C. The coldest month, January, 7.4 C. On average temperature, the fall is warmer than spring on 2.0 C. On average in Kotor in a year, of rainfall drop out. The bulk of rainfall is the share of autumn, 248, and winter, 243 months, a smaller part for summer months, 68. Winds mainly blow from the southeast and the south. From May 15 to October 10, temperature of the sea is above 18 C, and the swimming season can proceed up to 144 days in a year. Population. On a census of 2003 in Kotorski municipality there were 22947 inhabitants. From them 10741 Montenegrins and 7094 Serbians. 47% and 31% of the population of municipality respectively. The population actually of Kotor has made 13176 inhabitants. From them 6851 Montenegrins and 3357 Serbians. 52% and 25% of urban population respectively. The below mentioned digits about urban population of Kotor include as well the population of kindness. Kotor suburb. As both of these settlements at the time of the census actually made one city. Though kindness officially is considered a separate administrative unit. March 1981 10780. March 1991 12903. November 2003 13176. Kotor minus 5341, kindness minus 7835. According to the same census, in 2003 17913 Orthodox Christians and of Catholic lived 2832 in Kotorski municipality. 78% and 12.5% of the population of municipality respectively. Actually 10142 Orthodox Christians and of Catholic lived 1552 in the city of Kotor. 77% and 11.5% of urban population respectively. It is one of the highest percent of inhabitants of Catholic religion in the country. In the city the headquarters of various national organizations, such as Serbian Singing Society, Jedinstvo, and the Croatian Civil Society of Montenegro worked. Religion. In Kotor today Orthodox Christians much more than Catholics, however Catholic churches it is more than Orthodox Christians. It is connected with the fact that throughout the most part of history of the city in the political plan in Kotor the Catholic population dominated, his representatives made the city nobility. At the same time the share of the Orthodox population gradually grew, did not become prevailing yet. Today two communities are considerably joined by the conclusion of mixed marriages. In the local press the unofficial rule when in families where one of spouses adheres to Catholicism, and another of Orthodoxy, the son is christened in church to which the father, and the daughter in church to which mother belongs is described. Saint Tryphon is in 809. Before split between Catholics and Orthodox Christians. The Kotorski citizen Andrea Tsaritsenis has redeemed sacred relics from the Venetian merchant who has brought them from Constantinople, is considered the heavenly patron of Kotor. Then the first city temple for the sake of this saint has been built. Orthodoxy. In Kotor the vestry of the Serbian Orthodox Church where icons, archival documents, handwritten and pervokshchny books are stored is located. Here, for example, the decree of the Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph I of 1874 about establishment of the Kotorsko-Dubrovnitsky Orthodox Episcopate is stored. The decree has been issued in 3 languages: German, Italian and Serbian. And the Emperor has signed the Serbian version with Cyrillics. Today most Orthodox churches of the city submit to the Montenegro and Seaside Metropolitanate of the Serbian Orthodox Church. However, there is also a small temple chapel of Saint Peter of Tenski submitting to uncanonical Montenegro Orthodox Church. The main Orthodox Cathedral Kotor, the Temple of St. Nicola, which is open all the year round. In 2009 its 100th anniversary was celebrated. Also the small church of St. Luke works, however at the bulk of year costs closed and opens only for solemn events, weddings and a christening, and for the period of a tourist season. Catholicism. Kotor is the center of the Kotorski Catholic Diocese, which covers all Gulf, and a residence of the Catholic bishop. For the first time the Kotorski Diocese is mentioned in the document of 530. Though there is a lot of Catholic churches in the city, most of them stand closed because of a shortcoming of parishioners and open only for the period of a tourist season. For visit by tourists or for holding concerts. The main Catholic temple of the city is the Cathedral of Saint Tryphon in the 2 days look constructed in 1166 on the place previous. Now in it Catholic laymen generally pray in Mass as the bishop serves. In 2009 in Kotor there have taken place the festivals dated for the 1200th anniversary of finding of relics of the saint. In this regard the Pope Benedict XVI for all year announced Street Tryphon's Cathedral a small papal basilica. Also Street Clara's Church at the female Franciscan monastery. In it nuns generally pray. Works. In Kotor the Catholic sacred Hosanna Kotorskaya was born. The history of settlements in Bot Kotorska begins in very ancient times. Various tools and pottery work demonstrating that the person lived in these parts with the Neolithic period what point as well drawings on cave walls in Liptsak to have been found in caves of neighboring mountains. In antique times there lived tribes of Illyrians here. Romans have begun to win these lands from 3rd century BB, and since 168 BB Rome governed here. And after its falling in 476 his successor Byzantium. Then Kotor is for the first time mentioned. In those days he was known as Acruvium, Ascruvium or Ascrivium, and treated the ancient Roman province of Dalmatia. In the 1st century the city is mentioned at Pliny the Elder as Ascrivium. And in the 2nd century at Ptolemais as Ascruan. In the next years Kotor became the Boki Kotorskoy center. For this reason the gulf and bears his name. At the time of the Byzantine board Kotor carried the name Tekaterin, or Dekatera. From ancient Greek Katario, rich with hot springs. Though there is also other version of origin of the name. The Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII Porphyrogenite. Hadrianarani. In the 10th century writes in the work about management of the empire. The name of the city of Decatur in language of Romans means narrowed and surrounded, as the sea gulf crashes into the land in the form of language on 15 or 20 miles, and the city is on its end. In 535, after exile it is ready, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian has constructed fortress over the city. The second city called Lower, according to Constantine Hadrianarani, has arisen on hills around in the 10th century. In 840 the city has been plundered by the Arab pirates who were based on Sicily and Crete and arranging attacks on the cities of the coast of Adriatic Sea. The Byzantine board in Kotor several times was interrupted. So in 1002 the city has been occupied by the First Bulgarian Kingdom, but next year the Bulgarian Tsar has conceded Kotor to Serbia. However, citizens have risen in the union with Dubrovnik, and after a while the power of Byzantium has been restored. In the middle of the 11th century the city, sometime the representative of a local Slavic dynasty Voislevishi, governors of the Principality of Zeta joining to Kotorska ruled. Till the 11th century Kotor was generally Romanoyasichny city where spoke the Dalmatian language. Since then the city, known already under the Italian name Cattaro, for many years became one of the most significant Dalmatian cities. Byzantium governed which till 1185.
In 1185 Great Shupan Serbia Stefan Nemanja, the founder of the Serbian royal dynasty Nemanjići, during the campaign of joining of Zeta to Serbia has triumphantly driven in Kotor, which has given in to it without a fight.
The prince has spared the city and has constructed in it majestic fortress. Kotor was a part of Serbia as the vassal state, having kept in inviolability the institutes of the power and the right to make the peace and to declare war. At the time there was already a residence of the bishop, and in the 13th century Dominican and Franciscan monasteries have been founded. In 1241, during invasion of Tatar-Mongols into Europe, one of armies of the horde under the leadership of Kaydan, the grandson Chinggis Khan, has besieged Kotor and has burned it. However, the city has quickly recovered. From 1185 to 1371 Kotor was the important trade and craft center of the medieval Serbian state, the self-governed dependent republic specializing in sea trade. The Serbian princes and kings from the Sword Nemanjići through Kotor and some other the coastal cities kept in contact with Western Europe. During this period Kotor felt considerable economic and cultural recovery. Its trade competed with the nearby Dubrovnitsky Republic and caused envy of Venice. However, in 1371 the dynasty Nemanjići was stopped, and together with it also the Serbian dominion in Kotor has stopped.
Since 1371 for near half a century Kotor with adjacent lands is actually independent city patrician republic, though officially recognized as protection of overseas monarchs. From 1371 to 1384 Kotor's governor is the King of Hungary and Croatia Louis I Veliki. From 1384 to 1391 the King of Bosnia Turko I is considered Kotor's master. From 1391 to 1420 Kotor was completely independent aristocratic city-state operated by the prince-elected nobilium. In Latin this title sounds as rector, prior, or comes. However, after defeat of the Serbian army in 1389 and fight on Kosovo Pala, the Turkish gain became more and more probable. Before threat of invasion of the Ottoman Empire in 1420 Kotor's people, according to the decision of Grand City Council, have voluntarily passed under management of the Venetian Republic and under its protection. Since this moment the prince is not elected. It is replaced by the Deputy of Venice. At the beginning of the 15th century under the Venetian protection pass also other considerable cities of the Adriatic coast of Dalmatia, Zadar, Šibenik, Troja and Split. The city was under the power of Venice till 1797. Throughout nearly 4 centuries Kotor and Boka Kotorska were a part of the province of the Venetian Republic which was called Albania Veneta.
These 4 centuries have given to the city typical Venetian architecture and still define its appearance.
Considering that almost all the time the Venetian domination Kotor and Boka Kotorska were the battlefield with the Ottoman Empire.
His possession began at several o'clock away from city walls. It is possible to call this period the most drama in the history of the city. Turks were very persistent in the aspiration to take Kotor as control over it allowed to control all to Boka of Kotorska. However, despite numerous attempts, the city has not been won, unlike Rizan or Herceg-Novi. So, in 1539 one of the best Turkish naval commanders Admiral Hayreddin Barbarossa with 70 ships and 30,000 soldiers has besieged the city from the sea, however after 4 days of a siege has been forced to recede. In 1571 the Turkish fleet under command of Ali Pasha Muhsin Zaid, who has been broken later at Lepanto, was besieged by Kotor from August 9 to August 16, but success was not made.
However, the siege of 1657 is considered the heaviest during the Candia War between the Venetian Republic and the Ottoman Empire.
Mehmed Pasha Varlets from Shkodër has besieged Kotor from 50 soldiers, to whom the armed city guards among 10 people resisted. The siege proceeded 2 months, but it was not succeeded to take the city to Turks. Possessing a powerful fleet, numbering about 300 ships in the 18th century, Boka Kotorska was serious naval force. It is possible to mention that in the last in the history large battle of sea galleys, the Battle of Lepanto on October 7, 1571, when the allied fleet of the Christian states has broken the Turkish fleet, also the Kotorski Galley, Street. Triumphant with 200 seamen under command of the captain Jerome Bazanti, the nobleman from Kotor participated. Though the galley has died in this battle, the victory remained behind the Christian fleet. In 1657, during the Candia War between the Venetian Republic and the Ottoman Empire, the great number of Orthodox Christians has taken refuge in Kotor from the Turkish invasion. The Venetian city administration has allowed them to use for Orthodox ceremonies St. Luke's Church, therefore in it 2 altars, Catholic and Orthodox. Services on both ceremonies were conducted 150 years before the French occupation of the city. But Turks were not the only disaster threatening to the city. Not less he suffered also from natural disasters, such as epidemics and earthquakes. So in 1422, 1427, 1457, 1467 and 1572 the city was visited by plague. Besides, Kotor was exposed to earthquakes in 1537 and 1563, and has been almost completely destroyed by the great earthquake on April 6, 1667. 2/3 of all buildings, including bell towers of Cathedral of St. Tryphon have been destroyed. The Venetian deputy of Alvise Fuscarini with all the family has died. However, after all misfortunes Kotor rose and built up again. In 1698 the Moscow traveler P.A. Tolstoy has entered in the traveling diary the following data. The city of Kotor has 2 fortits stone and very strong. A half-tide fortits is at water out of the blue, another half is led round on the mountain highly for the fact that have fear from arrival of the Turkish people on the ground. From Tai Kotor there live Turks in near revenges, versed in 6 and closer. And always Kataris and at Parastin 2 Turks have fights, and often there is a truce when Pamirias have between themselves and the auction. Under the Campoformyski contract in 1797 the city was passed from Venice to the monarchy Austrian by Gabsburgov, but in 1805, under the Presburgsky contract, he has been given to the Italian kingdom as to the vassal of the French Empire of Napoleon. The French occupation was extremely undesirable to residents of the coastal cities, as they lived first of all overseas trade, and Napoleon was at war with England, the Empress of the Seas, at this time. Kotor's transition and neighboring lands under control of France meant transformation of all Kotorski ships into potential spoils of war of the British fleet, blocking of ports of the Mediterranean Sea for all of them under the English control, and utter impossibility of further trade. Therefore Boka Kotorskaya's inhabitants have sent for the help to the Lord of Montenegro Piat Negoshtuzetini, who has in turn sent the message on the island of Corfu, to the commander of the Mediterranean expedition of the Russian fleet Admiral Senevin. In February 1806 the Russian ships and Montenegro groups have borrowed the city of Boki, including on February 28 the Russian squadron has approached Kotor. On March 2 the Austrians have given the city to representatives of the Admiral Senevin.
Vocesta have immediately sworn on fidelity to the Emperor Alexander I.
The expelled Austrian garrisons on small vessels have been transported home. To triumph of residents there were no borders. Vocesta cried with happiness, kissed the Russian seamen, embraced, showered in flowers, kissed floors of their dress. The Russian vessels were decked by flags and together with all 8 forts have made a salute in 101 shots. On all area gun and gun firing all day, till the dead of night, as a sign of joy was heard. Not only local merchant ships, but also all houses and boats were decorated with Andreevsky flags. The description of the city made by the participant of an expedition 5b. Brunevsky in his memoirs has remained. Without seeing still strengthenings, one view of Kotor directs horror. The high, almost falling rock, is enclosed with stone walls, on ravines and the excessive steepness inimitably Alepliani. Fortress as though is lowered in a boiler above which naked mountains are having bent. At top the lock is visible. To look at it, it is necessary to bend the head back and to direct eyes up. The city is built at a mountain soul by the sea.
After further joint military progress of Russians and Montenegrins, the Metropolitan Piat Negosh has addressed Alexander I with the offer on creation under Protectorate of Russia of the Slaviano-Serbsky state with the center in Dubrovnik, including in Kotor.
But defeat of the Russian troops under Friedland has brought on June 2, 1807 to the Tilsit world on which the Russian Tsar has conceded to Boka Kotorskaya to Napoleon.
On July 25 the Admiral Senevin has received imperial command, hand over the province and the city of Boka di Cataro, to the French.
Evacuation of the Russian naval and ground forces has been finished by August 14, 1807. After leaving of Russians the French controlled the city till 1813, and in 1810 Kotor has been attached to Illyrian provinces of the French Empire.
In September 1813 the Metropolitan Piat Negosh has seized all Boka Kotorskaya, including which on Skupština and Scythian kindness the decision on accession of the coast to Montenegro as a part of a time domain of 2 integrated autonomies of Montenegro and Boka Kotorskaya has been made.
In 1814 Piat Negosh has appealed to Alexander I again to accept Montenegro under protection of Russia, but the emperor asked Montenegrins to leave to Boka Kotorskaya, who has passed to Austria according to the decision of the Vienna Congress. On May 1, 1814 Montenegrins have left Kotor, having lost with such work of the one outlet to the sea. As a part of Austria-Hungary, Kotor was a part of the Dalmatian kingdom, and remained under the Austrian domination from 1814 to 1918. For more than 100 years of the Austrian board in Kotor and his vicinities there was a set of revolts among local population. So, in 1869 an attempt to enter obligatory military service in the Austrian army into Kravashi, the plateau on the western spur of Mount Oran, the revolt of locals of Orthodox religion has broken up. The mutiny has been suppressed by forces of the Austrian forwarding housing, however the government of Austria-Hungary has been forced to refuse the idea of a general compulsory military service. But as a result it has been entered repeatedly in 1881, having led to a new revolt among the Orthodox population which has also been suppressed. After that, Austria has begun large-scale reconstruction of the naval port in the Gulf, seeking to make it impregnable from possible attack of Russians or Montenegrins. On the other hand, the period of the Austrian domination in Kotorska also became time of rise in Slavic national consciousness.
In Kotor in the 19th century, various Serbian societies constantly are based and the Serbian institutions open.
1838, the Palace of the Serbian meeting with library. 1848, the Serbian National School under jurisdiction of Orthodox Church. 1862, the Serbian National Guards. 1868, the Serbian National Charitable Society, St. Georgi. 1869, the Serbian Orthodox School. 1899, Cooperative of the Serbian Workers. 1901, the Serbian Credit Union. In 1874 in Kotor, the Kotorsko-Dubrovnitski Episcopate of the Serbian Orthodox Church has been founded, and in 1909 the Orthodox Church of St.
Nikola, the first Orthodox church in the city since 1657, when in St. Luke's Church have begun to conduct services on an Orthodox ceremony, is open.
In World War I, Kotor was the arena of the most severe fights between Montenegro and Austria-Hungary. On February 1-3, 1918 there was a Kotorski revolt of sailors of the Austro-Hungarian fleet. Crews of 40 vessels which were in the Kotorski Bay. About 6,000 sailors, Croats, Slovenes, Czechs, Hungarians, and workers of port have risen. Having concentrated troops, Austro-Hungarian command has suppressed a revolt. About 800 people have been arrested, heads of a revolt are shot. Since 1918, after defeat of Austria-Hungary in World War I, the city was a part of the Kingdom of Serbians, Croats and Slovenes. Since 1929 the Kingdom Yugoslavia. From this point the city began to be called which officially. Until then in documents the Italian Kotor option has been accepted. Till 1922 Boka Kotorska represented the independent district with the capital in Kotor, and in 1922 became a part of the Zetski region. Since 1929 the Zetski Banovina. In 1920, more than 100 years after a squadron of the Admiral Senyavin, in the Boka-Kotorski Gulf there were Russian ships again, but now from the remains of army of the Baron Wrangel and the Russian refugees. In the infirmaries open near Kotor, refugees received medical care, and then were settled across the territory of the kingdom.
After capitulation of Royal Yugoslavia during World War II in 1941, the city has been occupied by Italian and the German troops. Mussolini annexed territories around Kotor together with other cities of the coast of Montenegro and has included them in structure of Italy.
All these lands were a part of Italian province of Dalmatia, and were called Province of Katara. Kotor has been released in November 1944. Nowadays date of release is cut in a stone over the main gate of the old city. Upon termination of war, Kotor as a part of Montenegro was a part of the revived Yugoslavia, now communistic. On April 15, 1979, on the coast of Montenegro there was a powerful earthquake. There were about 100 victims. Half of the old city has been destroyed. Street Trifon's Cathedral is damaged. After restoration, the old city of Kotor has been taken under protection of UNESCO. During the civil war in Yugoslavia in the 90th years of the 20th century, in Kotor military operations were not conducted. Now the city is a part of modern Montenegro. Culture and art. In Kotor, the Maritime Museum of Montenegro, whose exposure tells about development of navigation in Bot Kotorska throughout its history, is located. Here it is possible to see portraits of seafarers and model of the ships, home decoration from captains' houses, and a collection of the trophy weapon taken in sea fights, ancient maps of the Adriatic Sea, and the coats of arms of noble captains' families of the city and its vicinities. Throughout centuries in the city there is a headquarters of ancient sea brotherhood, Bakalske Mornarica. Professional Society of Seamen of Boka Kotorskaya, which since 1859 works as the memorial organization of protection of traditions. Every year seamen organize a festival, Bakalsk Night. Since 1997 the non-governmental cultural organization, Expeditio, works in the city. Annually various festivals of culture, such as Gita Job in Kotor. Festival of Arts Kotor Art. Kotorski Festival of Children's Theatre. Kotorski International Summer Carnival. In the city work. City Library. The movie theater equipped in the former building of church. The Nikola Jerkovic Cultural Center with theater at it. Art galleries in which it is possible to see works of local artists. Also in Kotor there is a city archive in which historical documents, the most ancient of which is dated 1309, were stored. At Archive, the museum and the non-governmental center of saving the historical documents, Notar, works. Science and education.
In the city there are several highest educational and scientific institutions which are a part of the University of Montenegro.
Institute of Biology of the Sea, the research center studying sea flora and fauna. Sea Faculty, the successor of Seaworthy School of the famous Captain Marko Martinovic. The Faculty of Tourism and Hotel Business, its educational base is Vardar Hotel, one of the central city hotels. Besides, in Kotor there are several institutions of school education. Kotorski Gymnasium. High School of Nijos. High School, Savo Ilik. Sea School. Vida Matin Music School.
Also in Muo, Kotor suburb, the International Center of Business Formation of Confederation of Independent Labor Unions, Sindenter of Montenegro works.
Healthcare. It is possible to mention the following medical institutions of Kotor. The Central City Hospital, including drugstore, public polyclinic, special lunatic asylum, veterinary station, economy. At the time of Yugoslavia in Kotor the ball bearing plant worked. At the moment it does not work, housings cost empty. Earlier in the city the office of the large sea company, Jaguar was located, however it has gone bankrupt, and its building has been sold to investors who are going to construct on its place 5-star hotel. In the Gulf several fishing ships conduct trade. including the only large signer of Sveti Matya. There is small fish canning production. Tourism. In recent years, Kotor attracts more and more guests, both with natural beauty of the Kotorsky Gulf and the old city. In the city there is also a set of other lines interesting to the tourist. In the summer in Kotor there take place festivals, such as Kotorsky International Summer Carnival, or Bakalsk Night, which visit up to 30,000 tourists. These are some of the most attended summer tourist events in Montenegro. In the old city there is a set of the fish and meat restaurants and cafe located in ancient buildings. Also at Kotor Hotel, the casino and nightclub of Maximus works. In Kotor the consulate of Croatia is located.
The old city of Kotor by right is considered one of the most well-remained medieval city centers on Adriatic Sea, entered by UNESCO in the list of the World Cultural Heritage. From 1420 to 1797, Kotor and his vicinities were under the administration of the Venetian Republic, and the Venetian influence remained dominating in a city architecture.
City fortifications were continuously under construction and reconstructed from 9th to the 19th century. Walls surround the old city and rise by the stony hill at which slope Kotor has settled down. Length is them 4.5 kilometers, height -20, and thickness -16 meters. At hilltop at the height of 260 meters above sea level, Fortress Street John. Sea Gate. Main. The 16th century.
You can't put from massive stone blocks conduct and pass in the thickness of a wall, which right side is decorated with the Gothic bas-relief of the 15th century representing Madonna with Christ, from which on each side there is street.
Tryphon Street. Wernerd. Perdix Gate. Yushny. Are separated from the road by the drawbridge over a cave mouth. In rainy days, sweet water escapes from a cave outside and pushes aside sea water from walls. In summer days the river stream disappears in a cave and sea water rises to gate again. River Gate. Northern. Are constructed in memory of Kotor's victory over the famous Turkish admiral Hayreddin Barbarossa in 1539. The inscription over gates is that Barbarossa has besieged the city, having 70 ships and 30,000 soldiers, but could not capture him. The Princely Palace, the 18th century. In the past the official residence of the Venetian deputy was located here. Clock Tower -1602. At the bottom of a tower the pillory before which put convicts and read its sentences is established. The palace of a family of Gregor in the 18th century. Today in the building the Maritime Museum of Montenegro is located. Palaces of other noble families. Kotora. Buch. Beginning of the 14th century. Byzanti. 14th century. Drago. 15th century. Pim. End of the 17th century. Biskucha. Middle of the 18th century. The Cathedral of St. Tryphon -1166. It is reconstructed after an earthquake of 1667 when bell towers and a part of a facade have been destroyed. The interior of cathedral is decorated with frescoes of work of the Greek masters.
On the facade of cathedral, the commemorative plaque established in 1925 in honor of the millennium from the date of coronation of the first Croatian king Tomislav has remained.
St. Luke's Church -1195. Originally the temple was Catholic, but in 1657, when many Orthodox Christians have taken refuge in Kotor from the Turkish invasion, the Venetian city administration has allowed them to use church for Orthodox ceremonies, therefore here two altars, Catholic and Orthodox.
St. Mary's Church on the river -1221.
Here relics of Bay are stored. Kotorskaya's hosannas, therefore citizens often call this church the blissful Hosanna. Street Clara's Church, the 18th century. Here the library of ancient handwritten books, the most ancient of which is dated the 10th century, is stored. Also in a meeting there are books published at the end of the 15th century with Andrea Poltashem, the first South Slavic book printer. St. Michael's Church, the 14th-15th century. Lapidarium, a meeting of the stone-carved coats of arms of noble Kotorski families, is stored in the yard of church. During the tourist season, large cruise liners regularly come into Kotorski seaport. Also in port there is a yacht marine. The Kotorski mooring is capable to accept only one vessel up to 300 meters long. Other ships rise on raid in the Gulf and bring passengers to the coast tender boats. In Kotor, the headquarters, Association of Shipowners of Montenegro. The Commonwealth of Sea Captains of the Trade Fleet of Montenegro is located. Otomsaj. Vrots connects a tunnel Kotor to Adriatiškoj Highway, the rest of the coast and the internal regions of Montenegro. There is also ancient picturesque mountain way, connecting Kotor and Cetinje. Near Kotor Kamenorilepetane ferry through the passage Verage, allowing not to go around to Bot Kotorskaya on the way to Croatia works. In the future on this place construction of the bridge is planned.
Also it is possible to reach by bus from Podgorica, in which airport all year scheduled services of the international airlines are made to Kotor.
Besides, in Kotor it is possible to reach from the airport of Dubrovnik, Croatia, on condition of observance of a visa regime of Croatia. Air traffic. The Tibet Airport, one of two international airports of Montenegro, is located in 5 km from Kotor. From here scheduled services to some large European cities are made, including Moscow and St. Petersburg and Kiev. During a tourist season, from April to October, daily charter flights to many other cities of the world are made. At night runs are not accepted due to the lack of illumination of a flight strip. It was going to be established in 2009. The airport has been reconstructed in civil of military airfield at the end of the 20th century. Sport. Kotor is based in 2 professional teams hold house games. Water Polo Club Primorats. One of the leading Montenegro clubs on water polo, the champion of Yugoslavia and the owner of the Cup of Yugoslavia of a season 1985/1986, the champion of Montenegro of seasons 2006/2007 and 2007/2008. The owner of the Cup of Montenegro in 2009 and 2010, the winner of EuroLeague and the owner of the European Super Cup of a season 2008/2009. The football club Bokel participates in the Soccer Championship of Montenegro. In his season 2007/2008, 2011/2012 and since 2014 in the First League. Both clubs are supported by a group of the fans famous as Knaves. The group acts since 1986. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.